fade in, slow heartbeat like bass. The screen glows with maps, cryptic symbols, and currency charts silently pulsing like signals from an underground bunker. Narrator. Serious, deliberate tone. What if the real war of our century isn't being fought with armies, but with currencies? What if the most powerful nations on Earth are no longer battling for land or ideology, but for silent control of your wallet, your job, and your future without ever firing a shot? Pause. Tonight, we uncover a story that governments don't announce, newsrooms barely understand, and economists avoid because it threatens the very pillars of global power. Another story where interest rates become weapons, currencies turn into shields, entire nations fall not from bombs, but from extranger tremors silently engineered behind closed doors. Leaning in. And here's the strangest part. This war has already begun. You're living inside it. Most people don't even know the battlefield exists. Music intensifies. Welcome to Finance TED Official. Welcome to the investigation that will challenge everything you thought you knew about money, its power and global stability. Setting the stage. The hidden machinery for context, clarity, tension building. To understand the silent currency war reshaping power today, we must travel back decades long before digital finance, long before crypto, long before you could trade on your phone. Because currency wars do not start with chaos, they start with fear. Fear of losing economic dominance. Fear of losing control. Fear of watching another nation rise while yours stagnates. Behind every currency war is a ghost, the ghost of a collapsing empire. But before the modern battles, before the great shifts we see today, one moment set the stage: the death of the gold standard in 1971. The breakpoint that started it all, when the US ended the gold standard, the global monetary system entered an era of floating currencies prices determined by markets, policies, and political motives. That single move removed the anchor that kept global currencies stable. Suddenly, exchange rates could swing wildly. Governments realized something dangerous. If we can control our currency, we can manipulate our entire economic destiny. This realization would shape everything that followed, from Japan's rise in the 1970s, to China's explosive growth after 2001, to the European debt crisis, to today's secret competitive devaluations. But back then, few understood what was coming. As one economist famously said, the world left the gold standard, entered the fog. Inside that fog, powerful actors began experimenting. Central banks, treasury departments, global trade alliances, the emerging financial giants quietly rising behind them. Currency wasn't just money anymore. It was leverage. It was an influence. It was a diplomatic weapon hidden inside spreadsheets. Over the next half-century, these forces would collide in a series of quiet battles each, shaping the world you live in today. The origins. The first sparks Japan, the first victim of its own success after World War II. Japan began rebuilding with a focus that bordered on obsession. Factories modernized, exports surged, technology bloomed. By the early 1980s, Japan was rapidly becoming an economic superpower. And with its rise came a dangerous consequence. The yen was too weak. A weak yen made Japanese exports cheaper, flooding the world with Japanese electronics, cars, and machinery. The US, still the dominant global economic force, felt threatened. So in 1985, 5 major nations signed the Plaza Accord, forcing Japan to strengthen the yen dramatically. Currency manipulation in plain daylight, and the result? Japan's economy overheated, then collapsed into a 30-year stagnation. One currency agreement wiped out a generation of growth. This was the world's first lesson. Currency strength is not always a blessing. Currency weakness is not always a curse. What matters is control. And the nation controlling its currency is the best, controls its future. But Japan's fall was only the beginning. The rise. China enters the game. If Japan was the opening act, China was the main event. The strategy nobody saw coming. When China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, most Western leaders thought they were welcoming a new partner. What they didn't see was the long-term plan quietly taking shape. China pegged the value of its currency, the yuan, at exceptionally low levels. Exports became unbelievably cheap. Factories flourished. Foreign companies relocated production to China. Trade surpluses ballooned. Every year, China accumulated more reserves, more influence, more geopolitical leverage, and the U.S. became dangerously dependent on China's cheap manufacturing and massive purchases of U.S. debt. The world didn't realize it yet, but China had discovered a new kind of economic weapon, the ultra-cheap, tightly controlled currency. Not through military strength, not through political arm twisting, but through exchange rate strategy. A strategy so effective that the U.S. accused China of currency manipulation for nearly 2 decades. The trap: by holding the yuan artificially low, China built the world's most powerful manufacturing empire. Here's the twist. If China ever let its currency strengthen too fast, its export-driven economy would collapse. This created a global imbalance so extreme that economists described it as a financial earthquake waiting for the right fault line to crack. But it didn't end there. The breaking point. The 2008 financial crisis. The global financial crisis shattered the illusion of monetary stability. The sign poetions. I said, I don't want to say no, and I've been at him, and when and so it was I'm governments unleashed a weapon few had ever seen on this scale. Quantitative easing, printing trillions to stabilize the system.
Oh.
And once the US began printing at unprecedented levels, every major economy faced a choice: print to, ought, or fall behind. The money flood over the next decade. The US expanded its balance sheet over 900%. Europe created rescue packages worth trillions. Japan launched the largest monetary stimulus in its history. China injected credit equal to the entire US banking system. Currency values twisted into unnatural shapes. Interest rates plunged below zero. Saving became punished. Borrowing became rewarded. And global inequality surged. But here's the catch. When everyone prints money, no one wins. But no one wants to be the first to stop. This was the beginning of the modern currency war, a global battle fought quietly, where every nation tried to devalue without admitting it. Fallout. The world caught in monetary crossfire. Devaluations triggered new imbalances. 1. Emerging economies crushed countries like Turkey. Argentina and Pakistan saw their currencies collapse by over 50 to 80%, wiping out savings and doubling import prices overnight. When major nations print money, smaller nations suffer the shockwaves. 2. Trade wars erupt with currencies fluctuating wildly. Nations began slapping tariffs, bans, and sanctions on each other. Why? Because if you can't beat your competitor's currency, you sabotage their exports directly. The US-China trade war wasn't just about goods. It was the opening phase of a currency power recalibration. 3. Wealth inequality explodes from 2009 to 2023. Asset prices tripled, housing prices doubled. Billionaire wealth ballooned 600%, wages barely moved. When central banks make money cheap, assets rise. Those who already own assets win, those who don't fall behind. This is the hidden cost of currency manipulation. It silently redistributes wealth upward. 4. The dollar faces new rivals. For 80 years, the US dollar reigned supreme. But after 2008, countries began openly challenging that dominance. China launched the CIPS payment system. Greece discussed a joint reserve currency. Saudi Arabia signaled openness to non-dollar oil deals. Russia shifted major reserves out of USD. Africa and South America started local currency trade blocs.
Oh.
The world didn't declare war on the dollar. It simply began quietly walking away. Failed fixes. Why solutions keep? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every time global leaders attempt to fix currency instability, their solutions create new problems. The Plaza Accord 1985 goal: fix dollar imbalance. Result: destroy Japan's economy. Eurozone expansion. Goal: create a stable unified currency. Result: debt crisis, austerity, internal imbalance. Quantitative easing goal: stimulate growth. Soaring inflation, asset bubbles, inequality. Trade tariffs goal: protect local industries. Result: higher prices for consumers, retaliations, global slowdown. Digital currencies, CBDC's goal: modernize finance. Result: massive privacy concerns, geopolitical friction, new risks. The pattern is unmistakable. Every fix creates a new battlefield. Every solution births the next currency war. And now, the world is heading into its most dangerous phase yet. Modern parallels. The new silent war, today's currency war, is different. Less visible, more complex, shockingly coordinated. Here are the active fronts. 1. The interest rate arms race. The US hikes aggressively. Europe follows hesitantly. Japan refuses to let rates rise. China cuts to keep growth alive. Every rate decision ripples through global markets like a secret message encoded in percentages. 2. The dollar's paradoxical strength, even with debt over $34 trillion. Even with persistent inflation, the dollar is still the global safe haven. But cracks are forming. The dollar's share of global reserves fell from 71% to 58% in 2 decades. The fastest decline in modern history. 3. The rise of gold and commodities in uncertain currency wars. People flee to hard assets. Gold hit repeated all-time highs. Central banks bought more gold in 1 year than in the last 55 combined. Oil-rich nations now diversify reserves aggressively. This is not normal. This is preparation. For digital battles, crypto, CBDCs, tokenized assets, these aren't financial curiosities anymore. They're strategic tools nations are using to escape dollar dependence or enforce greater control. China leads with its digital yuan. Europe is accelerating its digital euro. US is experimenting quietly with prototypes. Whoever controls digital settlement controls future currency power. 5. The BRICS expansion. BRICS invited new members with massive natural resource reserves. The combined bloc now controls 42% of global oil output, 32% of global GDP, PP over half of global population, a growing share of non-dollar trade. This is not just economic cooperation. This is a strategic currency realignment. The goal is clear: a world where the dollar is no longer the only ruler. The pattern. History is repeating itself when you look closely. Every currency war follows the same pattern. One nation rises too fast, others retaliate with currency pressure, trade tensions explode. Central banks intervene, markets distort, global imbalances grow, a crisis resets the system, a new power emerges. This happened with Britain gives us, US gives Japan, Japan gives China, China gives BRICS coalition, and now a new reset is approaching. Not because nations want conflict, but because the system is mathematically unsustainable. Too much debt, too much manipulation, too much imbalance, too much distrust. The silent currency war will not end quietly. Final takeaways. Takeaway number 1. Currencies are the real weapons of power nations. Do not control global influence through military might alone. They do it through monetary leverage. Takeaway number 2. Crises don't create currency wars. They expose them. 2008 didn't start. The war, it revealed it. Today's tensions are revealing the next one. Takeaway number 3. The major financial reset is not an if. Reserve dominance shifts every 80 to 100 years. We're at year 79. Final message: warning, an open-ended thought. The next global power shift will not be announced. It will not be televised. It will not be publicly debated. It will happen quietly. In interest rate decisions, in currency swaps, in digital settlements, in gold reserves, in trade pipelines, and in the silent calculations of nations preparing for the next age of influence. You are living through a transition, and future generations will study. The question is, will you understand it before it reshapes your life, or only after the dust settles? If today's deep dive opened your eyes to the hidden mechanics of global power, hit like, subscribe. and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Is the dollar's dominance ending or just evolving? This is Finance TED Official, bringing you truth from behind the numbers. Signing off until the next deep investigation.